Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For those for the first time here, my name is Zach. I'm 21 years old Russian who left Russia because of the war against Ukraine. I have a lot of viewers who were interested about Russia, Russian culture and Russian music before the war, and many of them used to listen to many Russian-speaking bands. And since the war started 24th of February 2022, many musicians were asked to show their position if they are against the war or not. For some of the non-native Russian speakers, it may be hard to learn information or try to understand if the band support the war or not, so I made this work and research for you. On my Instagram, I asked my followers what Russian-speaking musicians do they listen to, and based on that list, I created this video. For the future videos, make sure to follow my Insta, Zach the Russian. You can find the link in the description below. We will start this video with extremely popular bands, and the first one is Polina Gagarina. You as foreigners may have heard about Polina Gagarina from her musical performances at the opening of FIFA World Cup 2018 that took place in Russia. Why is Polina Gagarina Z? Well, because she participated in that concert for the piece Zamir, with a Z letter, Zamir, and that was a governmental concert created to show like, yeah, Russians do support the war, yes, we are all in, and she was one of the singers to show, like popular singers who were invited to that show, just to show to the rest of the world, yes, Polina Gagarina do support this is why it's right. So my verdict, Polina Gagarina is a Z, unfortunately. A band called Serebro, or Silver in English, a pretty popular band outside of Russia because it consists out of girls. That's why I guess. It's kind of not obvious are they Z or not. The first thing Olga Serebkina published after the start of the invasion was a post where she walks towards the camera like a model. She also published a story on Insta saying, "This situation is very sad, I wish everyone would live in peace and there would be no complications that are happening right now." But she wrote it when she was going back home, not on a plane as she used to, but on a car from occupied Crimea. So she visited Crimea many times after 2014, and me and many people who are against the war consider this as support of Russian aggression against Ukraine since 2014. Another member of Serebro, Yelena Temnikova, well, firstly, she went to occupied Crimea after 2014, so as considered as support of Russian aggression. Moreover, in 2019, she said, "I'm a big fan of my country, my nation, and my people. I love our presidents. I'm a fan of Putin and Medvedev. I love our government." But 27th of February, so 3 days after the war started, she said, "Many of my friends are in Ukraine with whom I'm still in contact. Those are the friends with whom I shared one roof and one plate together. Those are the friends who are literally ready to sacrifice their lives to save me. I beg you, stop it. Russians have no reason to fight against Ukrainians." And after the war started, she cancelled some of her concerts for a couple of months. So I wouldn't say they are, the saint, anti-war activists, no, but at the same time, I cannot say that they are Z, even though in 2019, Yelena Temnikova said that she's in love with Putin and Medvedev. Before we continue, there is a small advertisement about my friends who also left Russia because of the war against Ukraine.
Hi guys, once again, thanks Zach for this opportunity. On my YouTube channel, you can find different content like Russian lessons, vlogs in English and Russian, and shorts. And also we film cooking with traditional Russian recipes, and sometimes I tell you about Russian traditions. If you want to study Russian with me, you can book a lesson. Just contact me in any social net, or you can watch my YouTube channel. There will be lots of free content. If you liked my video, please follow me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. My nickname is LexiQueen everywhere in all social nets. Subscribe. Thanks for your attention.
We continue, and the next band is the band t.A.T.u. They were really famous at the start of 2000s. They even have some songs in English since they were pretty popular outside of Russia. Unfortunately, both of the singers are Z supporters. Yulia Volkova visited the occupied Crimea many times after 2014. There is even an open felony case in Ukraine accusing Yulia Volkova of visiting the occupied territories. Moreover, in 2021, she ran for a parliament member's chair inside of Putin's party called United Russia, but she didn't make it. She said that she is an apolitical person in 2016, answering the question about Russian aggression in Ukraine.
Года после страшных событий в Украине и после нарушения отношений между Украиной и Россией ты в Украине не была. Почему сейчас решилась приехать?
Ну, потому что мне хочется видеть своих поклонников, мне хочется работать везде, и вообще я человек, который вне политики,
Hello there.
So it seems to me that she doesn't really have any position and doesn't care at all. Another member of t.A.T.u, Yelena Katina, also is a Z. She visited the occupied territories many times. For example, she had concerts in Donetsk and Luhansk after Russia started a full-scale invasion in Ukraine. Alla Pugacheva, Russian prima donna, one of the most famous Russian singers of all times. And what's more important, she is not a Z supporter. She left Russia right after the invasion started. Her husband Maxim Galkin was really vocal about the war Russia waging against Ukraine. September 16th, Galkin was called a foreign agent by the Russian government. Answering that decision, Alla Pugacheva asked the government also to claim her a foreign agent because she is agree with her husband. So obviously, Alla Pugacheva doesn't support the war. Dima Bilan, and he is a Z.
Oh my god, bro. Hell no, man. What the fuck?
In March, so right after the war started, he said, I voted for Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, and then I voted from the deep down of my soul. And right now, I don't know what I want. I just want to support my country. Support in what? What are you going to support in Russia nowadays, after Russia invaded Ukraine? In June, he also said this. Of course, this is a tragedy, and I agree that I needed to pay attention before. I didn't provide any address help to people of Donbass, but if they will need my help, you know, some kind of musical or any kind of, just tell me. I wonder to whom is he telling this? To his fans? So they would tell him like, oh, you go and help people in Donbass? Or is he saying this to administration of the President Vladimir Putin? If you need me, if you need me for propaganda, just tell me. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be singing your songs. Vitas. Yes, this is that guy from TikTok who is sitting like he's not from Earth. I was surprised, but he's actually really popular in China. He's not only a citizen of Russia, but also of Ukraine. Well, Vitas said he's ready to renounce his Ukrainian citizenship in 2023. On his Wiki profile, I found that he follows Russia Today, and Russia Today is the main Russian propaganda media in English, but they also have it in Russian, and so Vitas follow them. He also participated in different TV shows at the main TV channels of Russia, singing together with Gazmanov. So it seems to me that Vitas is likely to support the war against Ukraine. However, he didn't make any public statements about it. And it's interesting that his daughter wants to move to the US and to build her singing career over there. So it's up to you to decide if Vitas supports the war or not. It seems to me that yes, he supports the war of Russia against Ukraine. Sergey Lazarev. And he is a Z. It's actually a really interesting case about Sergey Lazarev, because on 24th of February, he publicly said that he is against the war. And of course, because of that, he was criticized real badly by his musical colleagues and some of his Z fans. At the same day, he deleted the post about Ukraine on his Insta and just kind of disappeared. However, recently, Sergey Lazarev totally changed his opinion about the war, I guess because of the criticism of his fans. He didn't want to lose money on the concerts because he's going to be kind of cancelled inside of Russia because of not supporting the war. He also joined the Z festival, which was like За Россию, which stands for Russia, but За goes with the letter Z. And basically, yeah, he turned into a Z supporter, unfortunately. Manizha, who was representing Russia in Eurovision in 2021, she is against the war. She wrote this when the war started. I myself know what it means to be a refugee during the war. It happened to me when there was a war in Tajikistan. For 15 years of my life, I was having no passport and no citizenship. And I perfectly remember that time of my life. I cannot support this. Manizha was born in Tajikistan but received the Russian citizenship because she had to leave Tajikistan because of the war. When the war started, she set her position, and because of that, she was kind of taken off from some of the festivals. There should have been a festival, Stereo Leta, in St. Petersburg, and Manizha in her Insta said that basically the organizers, they took her off the concert because of her position. Let's go to the section of the rappers, and the first rapper is gonna be Morgenshtern, and he is Nazi. Well, firstly, Morgenshtern is considered as a foreign agent in Russia, so it already kind of shows his position by itself. Also in March 2022, he posted a music video called 12, and at the start of the video, he put a famous words of a really famous Ukrainian journalist, Dmitry Gordon, where he's saying that Russian invaders should get back to where they come from, but in a really cursive way. And then, in the end of this musical video, he put the voice messages of one of his workers from Ukraine, where the mother saying that they are sitting under the shellings. She hopes that she will see her son, and her son is working with Morgenstern.
Сынулечка, ну да, у нас тут прямо у нас утром крышу чуть не снесло. Мы думали куда-то текать, а потом вернулись на место. Ну, сейчас сидим и в погребе бомбоубежище себе приготовили. Так что, ну, котик, не волнуйся.
So I guess it's kind of obvious what the position of Morgenstern is. Another rapper, Oxxxymiron, and I was actually surprised that he's popular among my listeners, and he is against the war because, well, firstly, he is also considered by law as a foreign agent, so it kind of speaks for itself. Secondly, once the war started, he started this anti-war tour, which was called Russians Against the War.
Очень злой, потому что продолжается полный пиздец, потому что уже больше 2 недель, как идет война в Украине, и при этом есть десятки миллионов русских, которые категорически не согласны с этой войной. Я считаю, что нужно как можно громче об этом сказать. И поэтому я объявляю серию своих благотворительных концертов, которая будет называться Russians Against War.
The main reason of that tour, raise money for the Ukrainian refugees. Timati. 24th of February, he published Nobody Needs This War, so kind of like an anti-war statement. But later, 18th of March 2022, so basically 1 month after the war, he appeared to be performing at the concert «За мир без нацизма», for the world without Nazism. Basically, it was a concert created by Putin's administration, and Putin himself was performing there. So it was a full concert to show that, yeah, Russia do support this invasion. Yeah, all of the musicians are there. So, and musicians were paid really good money for singing a couple of songs. And Timati, who published that Nobody Needs This War, he was one of them who was there. Later, it's actually so funny, like in September, when there was a mobilization in Russia called out, he left to Uzbekistan already 25th of September. But 26th of September, when he was already in Uzbekistan outside of Russia, he said, I'm ready to mobilization. Yeah, of course, you are ready to mobilization because you are not in Russia. You are not stuck as hundreds of thousands of those young men who are going to be sent to kill Ukrainians and to die as cannon fodder for the imperialist ambition of Putin. Another rapper, Face, and he is against the war. Firstly, he is a foreign agent, so it is a pretty big, statement already. Once the war started, he said this: I still cannot believe it happened, and it continues to happen, even right now. My country is involved in this, and I can't believe that people with whom I was friends, some of them do support this. People with whom I was like neighbors, with whom I was going to the same grocery store, they support it. Let's switch to Russian post-punk, the doomer music, whatever you call it. I personally in love with post-punk as a genre, and I listen to a lot of bands. And the first one is gonna be Mochat Doma, and Mochat Doma are obviously not Z supporters. Why? Because eventually when the war started, they made this first video and published it on Facebook, and it was called Stop War. It was published on the 1st of March.
Приветствуем всех, мы группа Mochat Doma из Беларуси, город Минск. Но молчать сейчас категорически нельзя, потому что ничего не может оправдать войну. То, что сейчас происходит в Украине, это тотальная катастрофа, которая касается не только украинцев, но и миллионы людей из России и Беларуси.
And they said that some of the money from the concert they're gonna be transferring to the Ukrainian refugees. So, and they also came to Tbilisi. It was Tbilisi open air. And Georgian people who were there actually loved the band, even though the songs of the band are in Russian language, because they all know the position of the Mochat Doma band. Mochat Doma is one of my favorite bands, and I recommend everyone who doesn't know them to check them out. Mochat Doma are obviously Nazi supporters. Another band which is literally called Shit, they also left Russia once the war started, and they are obviously against the war because I can just tell you from my personal experience. Last time they were performing at the festival named Volia, and this is a charity festival made in Tbilisi, Georgia, the main goal of which is to fundraise money for Ukrainian refugees. And they were there helping to fundraise money, so obviously they are against the war. You can listen to them. Pasosh. Well, officially there is no band Pasosh anymore because they were dissoluted in 2021, but Petr Martic, who is a kind of frontman solist of the band, he made this statement. The war affected me and my family and many of other families. Everyone still remembers about it, regardless how badly we would like to forget that. Wars are awful. What is happening in Ukraine right now is terrible and inhumane. So obviously Pasosh is Nazi. Another band called Ploho, which sounds pretty familiar to Mochat Doma, and they got a couple feats together. And when the war started, February 24th, 2 days after, February 26th, they made this post on Facebook saying, "War will never be the right solution, this is a terrible mistake and it must be stopped." Human Tetris, a post-punk band singing in English. And on April 5th, so more than 1 month after the war started, they made this post. "Dear friends all around the world, it's very hard to find words and control emotions. We must take care of each other more than ever. Please, if you can support people who are in need right now, in any possible way, nothing can be more important than human life and its safety." I don't know, it sounds like, you know, a kind of like a peaceful manifest, but at the same time, there is nothing about the real war that is going on and that is being held by their own country. So I don't really think it's kind of like a manifesto. I didn't find any other information about their position. This is it. Up to you to decide what do they think about the war. Another band singing in English, even though they are originally from Russia, is called Motorama. Originally, they didn't tell anything about the war. At least I couldn't find it, being a Russian native speaker, and some of their posts are in Russian. So when it was 9th of May, they've published this celebration postcard with a Kremlin, and it was saying like Happy Victory Day, which is, I think, nowadays when Russia is basically turned into what it was fighting with, you know, celebrating with a Victory Day nowadays is kind, and not saying about, you know, the war in Ukraine, is kind of hypocritical in my opinion. While at the same time they continue they are having concerts in Russia and not showing their position, so it's up to you to decide if they support the war or not. It seems to me that they are kind of out of politics. So another band, Peremotka, after the war started, they made this statement: "Friends, we still cannot believe what is happening right now. Music and art are meant to bring people together. That's what we tried to embody in our music. And we are incredibly frustrated about current events. There shouldn't be a war." So obviously they are against the war. Another category which I named special for his band is going to be a little big. 29th of March, they published photos on Insta where it was saying on t-shirts, "No war." As far as I know, it was already when they left Russia and they came to the US. And then when they came to the US, they've made this music video which was called Generation Cancellation. And it's kind of like an anti-war statement. At least in the interview, they're saying this is the anti-war statement. Some Ukrainians didn't like it, didn't like some of the ideas in this musical video. I kind of liked it. Obviously, they are against the war. I Speak, well, I guess I don't need to tell you who are I Speak and why are they against the war. Nastya, who is the soloist of the band, she made and gave so many anti-war interviews about why the war is bad, why she's against it, why she doesn't like Putin. And of course, there are a couple of music videos, for example, Dead But Pretty. Which was, I think, first video after the war started. Police beating up the protesters and everyone who doesn't agree with the war in front of the Kremlin, so it's kind of self-explaining, I guess. And the third band in a category special called Shortparis. You know, you can build your list of bands to listen to by my recommendations from this video. Shortparis is just amazing group. I love them so much. Many of the political situations and events in their music is represented even before the war. And after the war started, they've published that video, which was called Яблоневый сад. It was a video made with the veterans from other wars. And this song is eventually originally like an anti-war song. And I remember I've firstly seen that music video when I was in Baku, Azerbaijan, the first country I left once the war started, and I was sitting in the canteen, you know, at 2 a.m. in the morning, not knowing what am I going to do next in my life. And that music video was published, and when I saw that, I remember I cried. Nikolai Kamyagin, by the way, who is the soloist of the band, 25th of February, so the next day after the war started, there were protests in St. Petersburg, big protests, and he was arrested, so I guess it's kind of obvious that he's against the war. Okay, it was pretty easy with post-punk and special bands because, you know, mostly younger generation is against the war. We're going to the section of old guards. This is how I named it. And the first guy is Yuri Shatunov. Or the band called Laskovy Mai. Since 2014, Yuri Shatunov approved the annexation of Crimea and occupation of Donbass and Lugansk. Unfortunately, Yuri Shatunov died during the summer, but still he had time to leave some comments on the war, and his director Arkady Kudrashov said that musician was going to join volunteer squads to fight Nazis in Ukraine, which sounds to me pretty crazy for a guy who's having a heart attack or whatever he had, but yeah, well, obviously Z. I was surprised by some of the musicians he mentioned under my story on Insta. Here goes Credo or Alexander Mahonin. He is a super Z guy. I've checked his VK profile and he got like everything a Z supporter should have. The band Virus, I consider them kind of like out of politics, but at the same time, after annexation of Crimea in 2014, they had a concert there, so kind of supporting the aggression of Russian Crimea. Mikhail Boyarskiy. He's actually used to be super popular in many post-Soviet countries, including Ukraine, because he was filming as an actor in one of the, I think, best Soviet movies, which was called D'Artagnan and Three Musketeers. And he was playing the main role of D'Artagnan. So the whole, you know, ex-Soviet Union knows about him. Many times Boyarsky performed in annexed Crimea after 2014. I've heard a really interesting story about Mikhail Boyarsky, that he was a really close friend of Putin already in like 90s.
У Михаила Сергеевича квартира на первом этаже, по-моему, на мойке, чтобы я не соврал точно, по-моему, на мойке. А выше этажом жил Собчак. И когда Путин работал помощником Собчака, заместителем, он ждал его часто и сидел в квартире у Боярского. И Боярский с Собчаком дружили по-соседски. И они знакомы еще с тех пор, хорошо знакомы. И Михаил Сергеевич ко мне приезжал несколько раз. так получалось. А он приезжал, говорил, вот опять был на дне рождения у Путина. Собиралось человек 15-20 всего. То есть Путин к нему всегда нежно относился.
He also wrote on his Instagram 22nd of February, 2 days before the war started, after Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic were recognized, that he support the recognition of those republics, and those recognitions will stabilize life in Donbass and will bring peace to the people over there. Well, it kind of sounds like absurd nowadays. Because look at Donbass. What happened to Donbass because of Russia, because of this war? It would be absolutely different in Russia if Russia didn't start to try to take control under those territories in 2014 and then eventually didn't wage a war in 2022. It would be absolutely different. So Mikhail Boyarskiy is saying some absurd in my opinion. Another pretty famous artist, musician from 2000s, Natali. I didn't find any statements about the war or against the war, so I consider her kind of out of politics, and I didn't find any facts that she performed in Crimea after 2014, so she's just average out of politics person. Любэ. I know many people listen to Любэ, and my friend Min told me that in China they used to listen to Любэ a lot because of like state TV channels. Любэ eventually are Z supporters, and as Putin said, the favorite band of his. In March 2022, there was a concert in Moscow made to show off the support of Russian people to the war, basically a Putin's concert. And Любэ were performing there their favorite, Putin's favorite songs. So we can obviously say they are Z supporters. Борис Гребенщиков or ex-band Aquarium.
Под небом голубым есть город золотой с прозрачными воротами и яркою звездой.
He used to be pretty popular in Russia, one of the first rock musicians of the USSR.
Boris Grebensnikov.
And he said that this is a real war. This is not a special operation. Those people who support this, they are physically ill, but they have power. This is why they can rip us apart with their tanks. They can destroy us. They can put us in prisons. They can basically kill any person whom they're gonna meet at the streets protesting against the war. Nautilus Pompilius, also a pretty popular band from the 90s.
Goodbye,
They many times gave concerts in an ex-Crimea after 2014. The soloist of the band, Butusov, performed in 2022 after the war started in Vladivostok on some kind of like Asian Economical Forum with the head of VTB Bank, which is basically the governmental bank. With a friend of Putin, Andrei Kostin, he was singing a song which was saying, "Goodbye, America."
Goodbye, America.
Before the war, it was sounding absolutely different. It sounded like, you know, we are tired of Cold War in the USSR and we want peace. But nowadays, it can sound absolutely different. Especially when you're sitting there with the person who is basically a friend of a guy who's threatening to kill the whole world, and especially to nuke US. And Butusov, the soloist of Nautilus Pompilius, also said in an interview, "As far as I understand, conflict in Ukraine could be only postponed, but it was inevitable." Obviously, as a supporter. Now it's time for the band Kino and its soloist Viktor Tsoi, who unfortunately died in 1990. The members of the band recreated the band together, and they are still performing, going around many countries with the concerts in Russia too. 10th of March 2022, they've published on their official YouTube channel a music video which was called Free Nuclear Zone. It's an old song of Viktor Tsoi which was firstly performed in 18th May 1984. It was an opening of the second festival of Leningrad, ex-Leningrad nowadays it's called St. Petersburg, rock club. So one of the first kind of rock scenes of Russia. And it was considered the best anti-war song. And those times, there was a war in Afghanistan still going on. And of course, many of the songs of Viktor Tsoi were kind of triggered by the Afghan war. We know that Tsoi was absolutely against any wars, especially Afghanistan war. He even dodged the army. The rock journalist Artemy Trotsky, who used to work with Tsoi, said, "The Russian army is stealing everything in Ukraine. They steal household appliances, toilets, and so on. The same thing Russian propagandists do. They steal songs of Tsoi as looters do." And the last band is Korol and Shut. Unfortunately, the soloist of the band, Mikhail Gorshenev, died in 2013. However, one of the ex-frontmen of the band Korol Shut created his new band, which is called Knyaz. When the war started, on his Insta, he said to Mikhail Gorshenev, who used to be the soloist of Korol Shut, saying, "Brother, you didn't see this." I don't really know what to think after that post, because basically it's saying, "Brother, you didn't see this," but doesn't mean he doesn't see the war, doesn't mean he doesn't see like the glory of Russia getting bigger and getting what maybe they wanted Russia to get. So I wouldn't say this is an obvious statement against the war. And secondly, they had concerts in 2021 in occupied Crimea, so it kind of shows the support of aggression of Russia against Ukraine in 2014. Those were all the bands which you sent me on Insta answering to my question. So if you want to participate in the next video, for example in Q&A, just make sure to follow me on Instagram. If you haven't heard about your favorite musicians and their position, then check out the description below the video. I've passed the info on whether they are Z or not over there. Also, thank you so much for those who support me on Patreon. As usual, I hope this war will end as soon as possible and there's going to be freedom in Russia and peace in Ukraine. See ya.